Coming up on Small Town Charm, we're talking all about the election that just happened. And I think the most interesting thing we're going to talk about is the two savants here, Mike and Chris, are going to make some predictions about what is going to happen in the coming months in our town's government. Very specific predictions, and I think it will be interesting to see how well those play out. So you need to tune in. Coming up on Small Town Charm. Welcome into Small Town Charm. Glad you're here again. This is going to be our first post-election episode, but before we get into that, just want to say thanks for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, love it if you'd like and subscribe. If you're listening on podcasts or on Facebook, share this as much as you can. Leave us a review if you like the show. All that stuff that you know will help us out. It will help us out, so please do that. All right, so before we get started on this one, especially because we're talking about election, just a reminder, this show is only for entertainment. We're not journalists. We're not claiming to tell you nothing but facts. We believe all this stuff is true, but please don't take our word for it. Do your own research. If anything we say sounds interesting to you, don't sue us because of something we said. Just be entertained by it or be angry by it, and then go look it up yourself. All right, so again, thanks for joining us. My name's Daniel. We got Chris. We got Mike. And so the election happened a few days ago as we're recording this. It didn't go the way that I hoped it would go. Mike did not get elected.
Oh, yeah.
We're not here with Commissioner Mike Lushek right now. But it happened nonetheless. And for better or for worse, numbers came out. Looked like Jessica Salamita won by a lot, or got a lot of votes, relatively speaking. And then Kate Kortner got fewer votes, but a lot of votes. And then Lisa Garamoni got a lot of votes, but fewer votes than that. On the surface, it could look like people really, really wanted Jessica and Kate to win. And I'm sure that's, for a lot of people, that's true. Yeah. But I don't even know where to start with this. One thing that, the whole running mate thing definitely worked in their favor.
Yeah, two candidates, I think, is always... I think we're learning now is the way to go in the future. I'm just going to say it because, I'm kind of riled up still about it.
Yeah.
I think that this election was and I know I'm going to get bleeped for that, but oh well.
At least it's early in the episode, so I can find it.
Yeah. I there's no other way to describe it. I cannot stand the fact that you had all of this stuff go on, this huge smear campaign with very, very inaccurate information, edited videos being thrown out there, and all this just terrible stuff get done. And it in my opinion, voters were duped. I actually talked to my parents today who were talking to their neighbors about the election, and they said that they both voted for Lisa, but they also so they did vote for Lisa, but they also said, we saw the videos and we definitely think that she was driving drunk.
Huh.
And they were having dinner with my parents, and so my parents explained kind of the backstory and how that was all edited and all this kind of stuff, and it's just clear though that the tactics that were used in this whole campaign run behind the scenes to take Lisa out, for the majority of voters in Nolensville, they obviously aren't paying attention at a deep enough level to where they would look at that deeply and think, hey, I don't think this is true. So there's a lot we're going to get into, but that's my initial take on it, is that it was complete.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my first thing was getting into how it worked out that those two, and again, I don't want to take anything away. It's not sore loserness. They only won because of this or that, from a math thing. But I know a ton of people voted for Lisa and then one of the other two just because they felt like they should just vote for two people.
Sure.
And in a situation where you've got running mates, what you're really doing is every time you vote for Lisa and one of the other people, you're basically taking away your vote for Lisa to win, right, so to speak, because you're negating it.
I mean, you were literally told on the voter system, pick two. So, like, if you didn't, no offense, Mike, but if you didn't know to write in Mike, I love that smile, by the way. But, yeah, I mean, if you didn't think to write in Mike or you didn't think to just vote for one person, like, anybody would just blindly walk in there and see, oh, I have to pick two. Maybe they knew that they were going to vote for Lisa already, but then they just picked one of the others. And so no matter what, we knew either Jessica or Kate was going to win a seat because there were 2 seats available. But ultimately, having 2 candidates kind of on one side of the spectrum and one candidate on the other side of the spectrum, the math just didn't work.
Right. All right, Mike, what's your first reaction to what happened?
Yeah, I knew that this was going to be the topic for today's podcast, and I'm still not sure which way I want to take it. We can talk about, like, just number-wise, right? So if you start crunching the numbers of the votes that were coming in, it looked like Lisa was actually leading Kate for sure, possibly even Jessica, leading up to the news stories, right? Because I think the earlies were down. When the early votes came out, Lisa was down by 4 or 5 votes to second place. And the news coverage came out with 2 days left of early voting. Those were the heaviest days of early voting. I was at the polls both days, lines, out the door, by far the busiest day. And then, so she came 5 votes within a seat from the early, and then she lost the election day by 200 votes. So it's like you can see it trending. She just dropped off right after the news stories came out. I mean, obviously it sucks. It's kind of defeating, and it's defeating because you look at what the actual facts were, and then you apply just smear and talking points and lies. I mean, we've all 3 of us heard this story where at the rec center, Joe was walking up and down telling people that she has a pending DUI. That's a lie. There's no other way to put that. That is a lie. And he did that. He did that knowing that most people won't get
what
on
are they
the
gonna do?
phone.
Yeah, Google it while they're in line.
Right? And like, even if they do Google it, they'll see that, oh, it was a news story. Like, oh, he's got a point. And then, like, somebody tried to call him out on it, like following him around and saying that's not true. Like, then he tried to bulldoze Lisa's booth and yelling at a mom of 3. 35-year-old. That's crap. And if we want to have elections like that, I'm down. Like, next election, like, thank you for setting the ground rules. Like, now I know the rules, now I know the limits, and 2024.
And neither of the 2 candidates that won have uttered a single word denouncing anything that's happened in any of this along the way. Even at the point when they've been, like, faced with, like, people saying to them, you've not said anything about this. That's when you should, if you're like a smart candidate, say, like, I better say something just to look good.
Yep.
They still refused. Like, there's no doubt that, like, what do they say? Like, if you're it's like you're giving permission to something by being passive or whatever. There's some kind of saying that I'm not remembering right now, but it's like, if you're not speaking out against that and you're benefiting from it, then you have a hand in it. Like, whether that means you actually, like, are physically, like, perpetuating that story yourself, or you're just leaning back and sitting on your hands because other people are doing work that benefits you that's dirty.
Right.
So they 100% are responsible for that. And I've said this before, but, like, in the future, I mean, this is one example right now, us having this podcast, but those 2 candidates being called out, for every, I'll get bleeped too here, every shit that came out of their mouth the whole time about insane ideas. Insane ideas, letting people spread rumors about their opponents and not saying anything, refusing to answer questions. That story doesn't end now. Like, they don't get to just walk away from that. Like, it's going to get worse for them now.
Right.
No, now I know the ground rules. If those are the rules, if the rules are anytime you do something wrong, I blow it up to the point, and then I start emailing it out to the district attorney, to the sheriff's office, to the news. Like, let's do it. Let's go. I have the same exact email addresses too. Yep. And if you want to play by those rules, we play by those rules with Bomo's around. You want to bring back those rules, we'll play by them for the next 2 years too. I mean, I'm more than down. I thought we were past that. Everything you heard from the other side. And I'm going to say something where I win regardless of what happens. I'm going to make a prediction. If it doesn't come true, I win because that's good. And if it comes true, then I win because I just exposed the whole entire backdoor politics of Nolensville. Haley Gellix is going to be mayor. She's going to be mayor. The three women are going to be in lockstep on every development vote, on every zoning decision. The only thing they won't agree on is how much money to give to these special, like one's going to be against like a special bench in a park, and the other one's going to be for stools. Like that's going to be the effect of the disagreements.
Yep.
And like I can guarantee that January 5th, the first BOC meeting, Haley's getting voted in as mayor. Like you can see that was the whole entire play. The whole election was win at all costs. So you get rid of one vote that seemed like pro-growth, even though she wasn't always pro-growth, and getting rid of Derek as mayor. I mean that's been going on for months now.
I want to touch back on the point you made about like candidates not condemning this, or just even just like the general public. So a few episodes ago, like, you know, I said like, hey, I went really hard in the last election and, you know, ran this ad campaign against a few people. I've heard some people, I think it was Tommy Duggar actually. I heard a rumor at the polls that Tommy came out and was like, well, you know, we're just doing the same thing that you guys did in the last election, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, okay, first of all, everything that I said in those ads was true.
Yep.
Like, there was either an association to a person or it was their voting record, or like I didn't make stuff up, and I used real pictures that were from these people's profiles. I didn't edit anything. Sure, I certainly like tried to like paint an angle.
Right, but like a picture of Wendy when the mayor was saying Wendy is supported by the mayor, or she supported the mayor.
Yes.
Like that's not, you're not drawing an inaccurate conclusion from the picture.
Correct.
The picture is you're telling the truth.
Correct.
Of the picture.
I didn't take a 45-minute body cam video and edit it down to 15 seconds to make it look like something nefarious happened. So to insinuate that what I did in the last election and what happened in this election are the same is egregious to me. Like it's just so false.
Did you come up to the polls during 2020 and badmouth?
No,
anyone?
I mean, no. Like I didn't do anything in public. I didn't like go and like try to like walk the line and like, you know, say you should look this up on the news. I didn't send things to the news. Like none of that. I've definitely put pressure on people, you know, whether it's like submitting ethics complaints or things like that. But the point is, in that election, though, you had 9 people running for those seats, and every single one of them came out publicly and said, these ads are not what Nolensville needs in politics. And I just think it's interesting. Here we are, another election cycle later, and all the voices that were against me running ads are now silent. Mm-hmm. So, like, Wendy Cook-Mucci, gonna name her, she's an elected official right now, never once stood up for Lisa and said, what they're doing to you is wrong. Haley never once stood up for Lisa and said, what you're doing is wrong. They're already in office.
Yep.
I expect a lot higher like level of I guess of character from them, because they are elected. They aren't just representing themselves, they represent the town. So for them to take the kind of like backseat and just say, well, we're going to be silent on this issue. And actually Haley even tried to push some things against Lisa internally along. So that's awful. I think Kate and Jessica, it's the same thing, never came out and condemned it. And the people who were behind the stuff that was going on literally gave money to both of them.
Right.
So it's just, to me, they're guilty by association, and they're winning this campaign will always, in my book, have an asterisk by it. It's like, cool, like you got in the Hall of Fame, but you definitely did steroids.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go that far. They did win fairly, unless you prove to me that there was no laws broken, as far as I know, other than maybe discouraging people to vote at the polling line. But I mean, they won. That's dirty politics. So what, like when you look at nationally or even state, politics. It's always dirty, right? You want to talk about the small town charm, and you want to have this positivity. You have people just constantly begging people on the 411, take the politics out of it. Like, no more political posts. Be nice. Be kind. Like, obviously, that's not how this world works. Even in a small town like this, it gets dirty as hell. Like, we've just seen that. So I'm not gonna put an extra go. I just now I know my ground rules. Like
I think my problem with it though, Mike, and I don't think they won fairly. And the reason I say that is because based on the last election, what someone on our side of the fence was told was going to that level of political engagement was unfair and was uncalled for, and it didn't belong. I mean, you can go back and look on the 411. If you search, people across the board were saying this does not belong in Nolensville politics. So I just think it isn't fair, because if everyone in the last election pushed back and said, you know what, like, we're not willing to go there, that's too far, and this election, like, it went even further.
Yeah.
Like, threatening people's employers, sending stuff to the news, sending stuff to the district attorney. Like, the level that people were willing to go to try to win these seats is unheard of in Nolensville, and I think crossed a line that wasn't appropriate.
Well, that's, you can't. We had the one chance to put the horse back in the barn 2 years ago, basically, is what you're saying, and in this election they pretty much bulldozed the barn.
Yep.
There is no chance now, and kind of like what Mike said. Okay, now we know the ground rules. Now we know how it's going to be. If they thought a 3-month election cycle was difficult, the next 4 years of them being public officials, where everything is on the table now.
Yep.
And I don't mean that in a threatening way. I don't mean that in a you should be scared way. If you can actually stand up for yourself and put out policy that's unique and actually have a vision for the town and do something and stand behind your vote, then you have nothing to fear.
Sure.
But if you're gonna keep doing things the way you ran your election, you're gonna have problems, and you're gonna have problems for 4 years. And if you think that there's no consequences for what you did in this election, I think you'd be gravely mistaken.
Yep.
There's the one time I called out that people said our impact fees wouldn't transfer over, and I got blasted for how mean it was that I called out people for lying or being ignorant and speaking. Like, that's obviously just totally fine now. If you can outright lie to people to get yourself elected and be devious in how you behave, if you can claim the two of you weren't running together, but the second the election's over, post on Facebook that you're collecting each other's yard signs, you'll make sure they all get back to each other, and you can post at the polls how your buddies,
Oh, I mean, there was a video on election night, the moment the numbers came in on the final poll, like, Kate gets up and walks over across the room, and I'm like, oh, like, surely she's gonna like hug her husband or something. No, she hugged Jessica.
Right.
Well, that's,
like, I mean,
and we all knew this, but it's like
nitpicking now, Chris.
No, but we all knew this, but the audacity of either of them, and I believe it was Kate actually directly replied to me on Facebook one time and said, "We're not running together.
Mm-hmm.
We're completely independent." Like,
oh wow,
like the fact that you were willing to say that.
Yep.
You're either the dumbest person alive,
or she thinks you are,
or she thinks I am. Right. Exactly. But either way, how does that? I mean, how does that look good for for
sure.
you? I just don't understand.
Well, and I think it begs the question: where have we seen politics that assumes that Nolensville residents are stupid? Where have we seen that before?
Yeah, like the last 10 years, maybe, or so.
Like basically, all of what Nolensville politics exists in.
Yeah, and so I don't know if there's like much more about the election to be said directly, other than just it's disappointing. I hoped better of. I don't blame voters. Like, voters got the information they got, but it's very obvious. And I know exactly. I know. I'm a liberal, people.
Not me.
Not
Stop commenting.
Yeah. Just me. Okay, I'm all about women's rights. I'm a feminist.
Calm down, bro.
I'm all those things.
Like women too.
My point is this, though. Here's what's going to happen: the second we start saying, "Oh, there's people pulling the strings for these these female candidates or these female commissioners. Oh, so you're saying that women can't do the job themselves? No, I don't. No. It could be your Lord and Savior Donald J. Trump up there that got elected in this election. And I'm still going to say that there's somebody else pulling the strings if Donald Trump got voted in the way that these people got voted in and ran their campaign that way. Yeah. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yep. There's similarities there.
I'm just saying I don't care who it is. The way that they got elected and it's the DNA. It's like their DNA is all over these two candidates.
Yep.
And we'll see how they run their commissioners.
Before we change the subject on that, their DNA is all over these commissioners. Is the perfect. That's like the perfect encapsulation of this because, like after the results came out, and obviously I'm mad. Like I put a ton of time into this race, just helping Lisa with everything. Like I hop online, I started looking through stuff, and there was a video. And in that video, it was like a celebration video, and it was Travis Blunt pumping up a room in his house. It was a victory party. Jason Patrick standing right next to him, fist pumping. Tommy Duggar and Joe all but hugging it out. And like that video since been taken down. It was a really bad look for the candidates that there was, the guy that says that he wants nothing but, like just be left alone. He's nowhere near Nolensville politics, but he's at a victory party, fist pumping to the chairman of the PC, hyping up a room with two BOMA members in it. Like, let's get real here.
Two people, and that you just named, who are allegedly, or they're being sued for allegedly spreading that edited video. Three people. So 3 of the 4 people named in that lawsuit that we know of
were at that party.
We're at that party for the
and that video. So I saw that video. And like obviously like that sold on wound. Like obviously I'm upset about this, right? So like that's a bad beat. Like I normally don't lose in Nolensville politics. This is probably the biggest loss of Nolensville politics I've been a part of. And so like I make a mental note of that to go back and watch it and get angry, get pumped up for 2024, and it's gone. Like it was such a bad look. That video got taken down because it encapsulated the perfection of this race. Was the people behind the scenes ran this campaign. It wasn't the 2 candidates. The 2 candidates stayed the hell away from the public eye, did not do a forum, did not publicly debate online, wanted to just meet you personally for coffee so you can limit the exposure there. And then the people behind the scenes, the people in that freaking video were the ones that were setting forth how this race is going to go.
Yep. I think the crazy thing to me, and we did not talk about this in a prior episode, but I've heard some stories from back in the day, and full disclosure, there was a time when I actually talked to Joe regularly, and like had interactions with him. We had a short friendship for a period of time, and Joe shared with me some really interesting details about prior Nolensville elections and the stuff that used to go on here. So like, when he was running for alderman, and when Jimmy ran for alderman initially, and like throughout kind of it was like the early 2000s probably in Nolensville's history, like a tactic that was used a lot by like opposing sides was to go stuff mailboxes, which is illegal, by the way, but whatever, it's Nolensville. So like people would go and stuff mailboxes with like flyers that would have basically a smear campaign typed out against somebody. And it was like, did you know this person got sued for like medical malpractice for whatever in their job? Mm-hmm. And like do you want this person in office because of this history or whatever? It's literally the same thing. It's just like fast forwarded to 2022, and like, okay, we have like body cams, and like we can send this to the news through email and stuff.
How many blogs did we find?
Oh my gosh.
There's a blog that's dedicated to Don Schwartz mishaps.
Yes.
There's a blog that's dedicated to Joe lawsuit, which is, there's a lot of them.
I think it's the only thing that exists on Blogspot anymore.
It's like in the world.
In the world. Like somehow when you Google Joe though, like it's like a page 2 result on Google, and it's literally a blog dedicated to all the lawsuits he's been involved in.
Yeah, there's one for like, I think there's one for Beth too. Maybe not specifically, but the one that talks about Beth a lot.
It's what's really going on in Nolensville.
Right. So there's like,
and it's like 3 years of like just crazy.
That guy was the original insider, like the Nolensville insider, except like he lost his crap and started going national. Like when Obama won, he lost it. The guy exploded all over the internet when Obama won. So
It's amazing.
He couldn't handle it.
It's amazing how many people I get along with and agree with in this town until you get to the national level. But that's fine. That's fine. Well, it's interesting because Joe was also going around passing out flyers about the zoning.
Yeah.
That was littered with things that were just completely wrong. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt and just said he doesn't know how to read a zoning map.
Yeah.
But like I called him out. I didn't say him by name. One of my public comments, I mentioned that you shouldn't listen to a guy who can't read a zoning map tell you about how you should vote. Because if you can't tell a roadway from a walkway or a greenway, then maybe don't listen to anything else he's telling you. But it's like, again, he's either misled or he's just lying on purpose. Either way, you probably shouldn't listen to that person. And that's kind of the theme of all of this. But again, it's interesting how much they relied on like paper flyers. Just pass out some paper flyers.
with his horses, man, those horses. I had to battle those horses when Darcy was coming up, and I had to battle those horses when Lisa was going. I'm like, these horses are like my nightmare.
Yeah.
They keep popping up all over Summerlin every couple of months.
I mean, we've said this before, but like they have a playbook and they just stick to it, and the playbook's never changed.
And then I'm not disappointed in us. We should have seen it coming. I always felt like doing it this way, going after Roddy like this, was always off the table, right? Like there's no way anybody will go after probably the most beloved chief in all of Middle Tennessee. Like Nolensville loves their police department. There's like, we basically started all of Better Nolensville on the premise that that Bowen was screwing over the fire chief. And this is the police chief that's been here forever, for 6-7 years. Right, so I'm going to continue with my rant. And for people that haven't realized this yet, we have 2 cameras, we have a 27-minute timer, and we have to stop and reset it. So we're not cutting anything out.
No,
we're physically getting up and resetting cameras. I mean, Daniel does. I go grab a beer. But so like I was trying to make a point that we should have been more prepared with them going after Roddy. I looked at the whole thing and I was like, this is not going to come out. This is somebody that has over 40 years of service in public service. There's no way. Like these people hired Roddy.
Like surely they wouldn't go there.
Yeah, he's been in the sheriff's department. He's really good friends with the sheriff. Like there's no way they're going to go after that. Like why? Like that's just insane. And they did, and they went after it so hard. The person that lost the most, like forget getting elected. Like Lisa's gonna be fine. She's got a job. She's got awesome kids.
Yep.
She's gonna be just fine. Like Roddy, he's close to the end of his career, and you're gonna put something like that on him now. That's immoral. That is, and not only is it immoral to Roddy, it's immoral to the town because you're taking somebody that has over 40 years of experience. And you're potentially risking that and cutting that off to where we have to find a new chief, right? Or there's zero chance we can replace Roddy with another Roddy.
Right.
We'll replace Roddy with like a random.
And for what? Right? For what? For 4 years, right? For 4 years of 2 candidates.
Because your land did get zoned a certain way.
Correct.
That's
correct.
What it is.
Or because you don't want, density, or you don't want like certain growth, or you don't want development to go a certain way. Like, I think that there are more ramifications too than just Roddy. If we lose Roddy because of politics, I think that there is going to be a domino effect throughout the staff on town. And like, to be honest, we have like a great staff.
Yeah.
Like, we do, yeah.
Award-winning budgets. Like Victor is probably the like poster child of a town manager. He's so well known in the state.
Yeah,
I mean, there are so if we lose Roddy because of this, and I'm just gonna say, like, I think there's a real chance we do.
Yeah.
Because who would want to be involved in this?
Especially after the way the election turned out.
Correct. Like who would want to be involved? So like, but I also think if Roddy goes, then like who on staff is going to sit here and say, well, like I really want to be a part of this government that's now partially run by the two people who are associated with this type
Right.
of behavior. Like, that's just, I don't see Nolensville staying intact in the same way that we think it will, and there are a lot of other effects that are going to come from this in the future.
And that's not fear mongering. Like I would count on it. Like that's a real threat.
Right.
And I have something to say too, because I in a previous episode I said that I really don't think that anyone is. You disagree with me. I said purely evil, and you said, "Oh, I think someone is."
Yeah.
Well, I still don't think any one person at their core is evil, but I will say probably one of the most evil things I've ever personally witnessed happened when this whole ethics thing happened, and Roddy got brought into it, and the people responsible for this message at that moment decided to keep their foot on the gas with it. That's the moment when you could say, whoa, plead ignorance. Just say, I didn't think about that. We didn't mean that.
It's getting too real.
This is too much. This is going too far.
Yep.
Oops. But instead what happened was,
the final push.
Yeah, forget Roddy. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens to him. Let's just grind this through. Let's keep going with this. And again, like you said, for what end? Like what benefit? You're trying to sacrifice something and someone so important and so valuable, and a great person, a great leader, everything we've all said about him, for something so trivial in the long run, in a moment when you had the opportunity again to do the right thing. And I put this on the two candidates that won. I put this on the people who are responsible for spreading it. The fact that no one came out and said, this is too much, this is not right, I'm not in this. So again, the only example I have to go with as far as moral decisions these two people are going to make, these two candidates are going to make, is they might do the right thing as long as they're not benefiting from the wrong thing.
Yep.
But if the wrong thing benefits them, you can expect silence.
100%.
That's it.
I'll just go on the record now, because this is going to be something that, like, I think we're going to watch very, very hard in the future. Kate is a real estate agent and is very active in Williamson County, very active in Nolensville. We've witnessed this before in Nolensville. Mm-hmm. We've witnessed somebody who sells real estate being an elected official.
Maybe we'll talk about that on a future episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to call it now there is going to be a conflict of interest that occurs. I don't see how somebody who is a real estate professional can vote on any single family residential project that ever gets brought up again, because how can she possibly say in the future, oh, you know what, I'm not going to financially benefit from this. Right. Like,
that's indirect, though. I mean, I don't agree with that, mainly because I'm a real estate agent.
And a former candidate.
I ran for office.
So what you're saying, Mike, is you also have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I just don't think that's such a direct conflict of interest, though, because it's like I might potentially one day sell this house or help somebody buy this house. That's not. Excuse me. That's not a conflict.
Well, by the letter of the law, the way the ethics guidelines read in Nolensville is that you can't vote on anything that you will have a financial benefit from.
But if you don't know that you're having a financial benefit off of it, it will be different if you have a parcel that's for sale
and you're the one selling it.
And you're rezoning it.
No, I get that. So, but I don't.
Like a car wash,
or like a ton of stuff up north on
this.
Okay.
We've already watched this happen. So there was an alderman or a commissioner in Franklin who was a real estate agent, and this is the same thing that used to get brought up all the time for him, is that he would vote on developments, and then he would also be the person selling houses in those developments later on. So there's precedent for this.
Let me ask you,
that this is an issue.
Where does the This is actually an interesting thing that I don't know the answer to. So I'm actually asking, because you probably looked into this more than I have. Where does the conflict of interest actually happen? Is it in the voting, or is it the moment? I'll just say it. Like, so if Kate voted on a development to move forward, that technically is not a conflict of interest. It's when she would decide to sell a house in that development or represent a buyer in that development, and then that's when the conflict would happen? Is that?
I mean, so like I think you're on the right track. Is that like that is technically, but like the actual conflict of interest is the vote. So like you can't vote on something that you personally stand to gain from. So,
but you don't know what you're going to gain from that.
But that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. So like based on our town attorney's ethics investigation of Lisa, it's whether a normal everyday person could assume that X and Y are going to happen by this action.
I mean, that is an important function of government, is to set precedent.
Yeah. So like if our town attorney has said, well, you know what, based on like an everyday person's assumption of this kind of thing, this kind of behavior, then they would assume this is going to happen. Well, it's the same thing here. So like everyday people, if you look at a real estate agent who's also an elected official voting on a development, I think everyone can assume that, well, she might sell a house in there at one point.
Right.
So I mean, look, it's easy. It's easy. All she has to do is recuse herself.
Out of every development, then she becomes a useless commissioner.
That's my point exactly. Though. But being an elected official, you are supposed to take the hard stance of protecting the ethical governance of the town. And so I don't think that a lot of people come into the job with that kind of knowledge or thinking that way. And we're definitely going to hold them accountable for it.
So you mean the person who just remained silent while our police chief got drugged through the mud because of some political
Or
points?
the person who puts an autoresponder on her Facebook messages.
After she tells you to...
Too busy.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute before we move on. So, that was Kate, right?
Yeah.
So she would...
You can do an autoresponder on a Facebook message?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I've got one on one of my pages.
Set up, Mike.
But the person who would...
trolling 411.
Right. Who would beg you to not ask her publicly questions, but send her a message.
Send me a DM.
And then you send her a DM and she has an autoresponder on and doesn't reply.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like that. That's a good move.
Yeah.
That's a good move.
No, I am eagerly awaiting when they take office in January, right? I think that's when. Yeah. So like when they take office, all of a sudden it's like all of the gatekeeping is gone.
Yeah.
So like you can't post something on your commissioner page and turn the comments off. That's illegal.
Yep.
That's illegal. You can't do it.
Don't tell them. Don't spoil.
You
no
can't.
Spoilers. No spoilers.
You can't not respond to constituents. Like that's not okay. Like you can do it, but like guess what? They will just go to Victor and they'll just go above your head and they'll start going to other commissioners and eventually it's going to become a problem for them.
Can they not meet one-on-one with real estate developers?
No, like they need to take those meetings. And honestly, if they refuse to take those meetings, I think that they're.
But I'm saying like they have to have someone else present, right? They can't one-on-one take these meetings.
Correct. No, like they need to have either the town attorney or
another commissioner.
Or another commissioner.
That's not a law. That's just.
It's good practice.
Right, but that's something the BOC kind of agreed on. I think it's crap. Like I'm voting for people because I trust them to negotiate on my behalf, right?
Yeah, for sure.
My vote goes to the people that I trust with my text contribution and the negotiating power of everything that goes on in town. So if you're gonna start cutting them at the knees, saying, "Well, you can't talk to developers," or "You can't do this, you can't spend money," like no, like I want you, like I can't, like the developer will not take a meeting with me, and it would be very ineffective if every developer had to meet with 15,000 people. So here are 5 best and brightest in theory. And like talk to them.
Yep.
Like that's what a board of commissioners is.
So this is going to change gears a little bit, but I just have to say that I don't think that either Kate or Jessica know what they signed up for.
Right.
And we got that vibe just from how the campaign went and like how limited the interaction was. I'm not saying a candidate like a commissioner has to be super engaged on social media or anything like that, but like if you're not ever willing to engage at all, that's kind of shady. But Kate said, I can't remember if she wrote this or I think she did write it on one of her posts after the results came out, and she wrote this post basically that was like, thanking all these people and then like a thank you to like her kids and her husband for like, my husband's had to take care of the kids all by himself all of these times, and he's been great. And like my kids have had to put up with like eating takeout way more.
Yeah,
times
I saw it.
That?
Yeah, I saw it. It was I saw it today.
And believe me, I am not knocking like a working mom or a working woman or anything like that. Like, totally have so much respect for the time that both of them are willing to put into this. But I don't think that either one of them realizes that the campaign was one thing. Being a full-time commissioner and how much time that involves is a totally different ballgame. And so I just really hope, and we've said this before, it's like, this is the arena. If you want to run for office, be prepared for what that entails. And that's also like from a public outcry, from a response level, but also like from a time commitment. Sorry, like if you're the mom who's like super involved in your kids' lives and like is showing up at everything, you're definitely going to hear from people if you decide it's more important to go to this thing for your children than to show up for a meeting.
Well,
like running a town and being a part of the governing a town means that you're sacrificing a lot of that.
Well, I also think that, maybe if you hadn't tried to have one-on-one coffee with every single person that had a question, you might have had a little more free time in your campaign.
True.
And so I had this thought, like, I wonder, to be like a fly on the wall of like Cater Jessica's Google searches right now about Robert's rules, like furiously typing, like, what do I even do in these meetings? Like, I don't have any opinions.
Lyrics of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah. It's like, it's just, they did the, not even the bare minimum is not even a good word, obviously, of preparation for a campaign.
Yeah.
So, good luck, Nolensville. You voted for it.
Yeah.
Now you got it. Like,
But I also think that's like in a greater scale of things. I think that's the big problem. Like what you mentioned, Chris, is that like you don't know what you sign up for because there's so much that they have to do. I think that's the biggest issue that we have with the BOC, because instead of leaning on your staff, going into meetings and kind of setting the big picture ideas and pointing your staff at these issues, they all try to instill their own agendas into every little thing they do, which is time consuming, because not only do you have to become an expert on all things, which is impossible, but then you have to become an expert on debating those things. Then you have to build a base to come to the meetings and talk in favor of your things. And then it becomes your entire life, and it becomes this super toxic, two-sided system where it's like, why can't Joel or Derek or Haley go in and say, hey guys, like, find out what the best traffic situation is, instead of like saying like, no, I think the best traffic situation is a middle lane down Nolensville Board. Like, how the hell do you know? Like, you're an insurance agent or underwriter for an insurance company.
Right.
You have no idea what the best traffic calming solution is. There's a guy next to you that's an engineer, and there's a guy next to him that's also an engineer. Ask them to look into it. Like, why are you trying to become the expert in all things and trying to fight for these things? And then by virtue that becomes your the nail in your coffin. It's like the one that like that's why you're so busy. That's why it's so overwhelming. That's why there's so much toxicity behind it, because now anytime they try to instill their agenda, it's the public looks at them and blames them or praises them for it. Whereas if it was just like the county meetings where you have a professional comes in and recommends it, and then you vote in favor of it because he's the professional, you paid him money to determine what the best course of outcome is, the public doesn't get that upset. Like,
right.
I cannot argue with a traffic engineer,
right,
with anything according to traffic, because I don't have those qualifications. I can argue, and I will argue for the next 2 years with Haley about her traffic measures, because her experience in traffic calming is the same exact as mine. Zero. Like, she's just talking about her preferences. Yep. I can do that all day too.
Well, that's the. So what you're saying is you probably shouldn't just have your own amazing hot take that you run in with and try to figure out how to support it. Listen to the experts.
Right.
The issue is what these two candidates have done, and what they follow, like the Wendy Cook-Mucci playbook of what all the citizens think. What do you all think? I don't know what I think. You tell me what to think. So now it's like we don't listen to the experts. Also, I'm not going to have my own hot take. I'm just going to listen to everybody scream at me what they think. And then when it comes time to vote for something that's not whatever I figured out the 1,000 people I talked to said, because I didn't run on a platform, I don't know what anybody voted me in for because I didn't say anything. you just deer in the headlights. You freeze. You won't ever, you do anything you can to delay a vote as long as possible. It's not because you might use the excuse of, I need to know more about this fine detail. But in the back of your mind, what you're saying is, I literally have no idea what these people want from me, and I haven't formed my own opinion, and I won't listen to the experts. I literally don't know what to do. And so these two new commissioners are either going to follow that playbook, or they're going to listen to the people who behind the scenes got them elected and want them to do certain things. We're going to find out January 5th, you said? That's the first meeting?
Right.
We'll find out when they get up there and start voting on things. We'll see if they have any vision, or if they just are going to vote whatever the nags want them to vote.
You know the big test, my big test for them is that there is a very common sense approach to the next mayor vote, and there is a very sighted approach to the next mayor vote.
100%.
I fully 100% expect Jessica and Kate to vote Haley Gallick as a mayor, because that's their side. That is their anti-growth, dumb, NIMBY talking points. Like that's that side.
Yep.
Logically, why would you change from Derek Adams? Derek Adams has been going to all the meetings. He's got all the relationships for state funding. He has the most experience being an elected official, and he's only been doing it for 2 years. Like, give him at least like a full cycle of the GNRC funding. But they won't. They'll do the thing that they were backed to do, and it's go there and fight the growth side of this town. And 100% they're going to get Haley in there as mayor.
Daniel, you also brought up a really good point, which is that there is this kind of sense that these two people are just like a mouthpiece for some larger group, right?
Yeah.
NAG
that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that doesn't exist or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I saw an email in the last few weeks, an internal email at NAG, and it basically was putting out there that the citizens of Nolensville in this election basically had a referendum on density. That's how you could read the results. It's Kate and Jessica are against density, and everybody voted for Kate and Jessica. And it's I think that we've made it pretty clear that this election was a little bit skewed. Yeah. And you can't fine, they won. I don't think any of us are going to...
Out of the 2,800
I don't think any... Until something else or somebody else tells us any different, we're not going to take some crazy conspiracy theory stance on this and say, well, the votes were miscounted or the ballot machine.
I don't believe that at all.
No, they won. They got the most votes. Until we
allegedly,
yeah.
But I mean, unless somebody were to tell us differently, that this is the results of the election. Kate and Jessica won, but they did not win in a landslide. For as much pressure as was against Lisa, she still almost won. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that there's enough evidence to say, well, this was a referendum on density. No, this was literally people just didn't know who the hell they were voting for.
Right.
And a lot of them voted for Lisa and then just followed the directions on the screen. Because guess what? People just do that.
So there's two things I want to say. One about what you just said and one about what Mike just said. Number one is... I really hope the same people who, when the charter change happened, and they keep bringing up, how many people voted? I really hope those same people are coming out now talking to, they poo-pooed the charter change happening because not everybody voted for it. Where are you now? Talking about not everybody. Two people got elected. I didn't say that.
Right.
But somebody out there was talking about how not everybody voted. More people should have voted. And so it doesn't represent what the will of the town is. Come on out and say it now. I'm not saying it. I don't believe that. But if you believe it about Better Nolensville, you better believe it about these candidates too. So that's number one. Number two, the thing about Derek being mayor, people need to know that everything that Derek is doing is in his role as mayor, as far as these meetings we're talking about, all these different committees, the MTP, all these different things, the GNRC, all of those things are they're not what he's fighting for our town is not any different than what any other mayor would fight for our town. The items he's fighting for from the state are not like divided across a political line or even like within this town. He's not doing things that like you would the anti-density people would disagree with.
Sure.
He's doing things that just objectively are great for the town. The difference is he's had 2 years of developing relationships and having these meetings and getting somewhere with these people. And so that is the point that you were making. Mike was making was he's getting there.
Yep.
But people need to know that those things are not. How can we build more apartments in Nolensville?
Right.
Or how can we do the King Street extension exactly the way Derek wants it, or whatever it is?
If they vote him out as mayor, which I agree with you, Mike,
They will.
They will.
It's a
I think
big loss
that's
for Nolensville.
yeah. It's a huge loss for Nolensville, and if they vote him out as mayor, they're doing it for strictly political purposes.
Yep.
It's to be able to like drive things at the local level, and it's at the ignorance and the detriment of everything that he's been trying to build on behalf of Nolensville that has nothing to do with density or apartments or all that crap. It's really unfortunate, but like Nolensville has sides. This is something nobody wanted to talk about last election. I wanted to talk about. I'll raise my hand and say that there are sides in Nolensville. I'm proud to say there are sides, and people should start picking which side they're on.
Yep, absolutely. Let's end it there. I feel good about that. All right. Thanks for watching Small Town Charm. We'll see you or hear you next time.